James Harden is pondering his future, and sources tell ESPN that the Nets are rising to the top of his list as a possible trade destination. The thought of teaming up with KD and Kyrie in Brooklyn apparently has him intrigued. Durant and Harden, as everyone knows, former teammates in OKC. Apparently, they recently discussed the possibility, but there have yet to be trade talks between the two front offices. As Adrian Wojnarowski joins us now. I mean, my question is, which one of the three of those guys is going to say, hey, I don't need the basketball all the time? But anyway, that's another question. Want to mention quickly, the Nets have just traded with the Pistons for perimeter defender Bruce Brown as well. So what are the realistic chances that James Harden could end up in Brooklyn?
Well, there's been a lot of factors for a trade of this magnitude, but it's going to start with James Harden really being aggressive with Houston ownership, management, and saying, that's where I want to play. I want to move on. And I think he's going to have to push the issue to get this because, Brooklyn doesn't have a star to send back to them. The idea would be to play with Kyrie and Kevin Durant. There certainly would be great interest in Harden around the league. And ultimately, how much would Brooklyn give up? Would they give up multiple picks moving forward across a lot of years? That's not Sean Marks' style as their GM. Still a lot of hurdles, but it is certainly on the mind of James Harden and Kevin Durant at this point.
Well, they have monster contracts too, though. How would that work out, KD and Kyrie, at such high salaries, bringing in James Harden?
They have an owner in Brooklyn and Josiah who is willing to go deep in luxury tax, and having three max players and a player like Joe Harris, you're going to have to re-sign in this offseason. It would be an expensive proposition. There aren't a lot of teams in this pandemic right now who would be willing to spend the way the Nets would be to have to do a deal like this, take on Harden's money long term.
Man, and who would be willing to take a back seat? Like, to me, that's the intriguing question.
Those are issues to be talked through.
Exactly. All right. So the Rockets, obviously, they lose to the Lakers in the playoffs. AD, as expected, he's opting out of the final year of his contract, so he officially enters free agency. What's the situation with him and his future with the Lakers?
Hannah, the issue for the Lakers and Anthony Davis is simply going to be how long of a contract extension is he going to do with them? Is he going to match up with LeBron, add a couple years on, do a deal for a couple years, and then go back in to free agency again? Does he do a 4-year or 5-year deal? That's the only question for he and the Lakers to work out this week. But Anthony Davis will be back opening night with LeBron James in LA.
Yeah, why not? And it seems like it just ended. I was saying to you, and it seems like you just cut out of the bubble. Anyway, here we are. I know you're very busy, lots going on. You'll keep us posted, and you're here all day. Woj.
Ponders his future in Houston. Sources tell ESPN the Nets are rising to the top of his list as a possible trade destination. The thought of teaming up with KD and Kyrie in Brooklyn apparently has him intrigued. Durant and Harden, teammates a lifetime ago in OKC, have recently discussed the possibility, but there have yet to be trade talks between the two teams. Our senior NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, joins us now in studio. How realistic of a possibility is this, Harden to Brooklyn?
David, how hard does James Harden want to push for this?
Okay.
And he is under contract in Houston, but Russell Westbrook is already on the market, would like to play elsewhere. And there's a sense that this Houston infrastructure may be breaking apart. And if Harden decides that Brooklyn is the place he wants to be and really starts to push the organization on it, I think that's the momentum that it's going to take to get him to New York. Brooklyn has some assets and young players and potential picks and all those things that you're going to want. But a player of James Harden's caliber, Houston's going to have to get a monster haul back to justify trading, maybe one of the 2 or 3 best players in the NBA.
Very interesting. It could be a complete overhaul there at Houston. James Harden spent 8 years with the team. They've never even reached the finals, knocked off by the Lakers in the conference semis this year. And I know the champs had a busy day. Anthony Davis opted out as expected, which isn't quite as bad as it sounds, and they intend to acquire Dennis Schroeder. Tell us a little bit about both of those stories.
Well, Dennis Schroeder from Oklahoma City, they'll finalize that deal here in the next few days, but Danny Green going back to Oklahoma City, perhaps onto a third team, more importantly for Oklahoma City, the 28th pick in the draft. They have 16 first-round picks here over the next 5 years, but for the Lakers, they may lose Rajon Rondo in free agency. Schroeder is a player who is a very versatile guard, can play both spots, and really helps the defending champs.
And as far as Anthony Davis is concerned?
The question with Davis is not is he going to be back with the Lakers, how long of an extension of a new deal will he sign? Will he line up with LeBron James? Does he do a 4 or 5 year deal? That's what we'll find out here in the next week.
Okay, obviously they want to keep him in the fold for the long haul. They're the champs. They want to keep this thing going. Woj giving us the very least. It's going to be a very busy week in the NBA. The draft just a couple days away, and then free agency after that. By the way, ESPN's The Woj Pod debuts this morning. Special 3-part series, the Giannis draft, the story behind Milwaukee drafting Giannis in 2013. It's now available on ESPN.com's The Woj Pod.
Worried, but I wonder if some of the fans in Houston are. NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski with us now live on SportsCenter. Woj, uncertain? That seems like it's the best way to describe the situation in Houston with the two former MVPs. What's the latest on the futures of Russell Westbrook and James Harden?
Well, Sage, let's start with James Harden. The organization right now has no intention of engaging in any trade talks with James Harden, and they expect to play this season out with him. Russell Westbrook, they are open to talking to teams. Both sides are very open to it, but I'm told it is a very slow developing marketplace for Russell Westbrook right now. And, there are not teams right now who are ready to move quickly, at the very least, to take that kind of $130 million plus investment on, number one, in these economic times, and number two, at Russell Westbrook's advancing age. Now, maybe that market opens up over time, but right now, I think his immediate future remains in Houston with the Rockets.
Okay, yes, advanced age. I mean, he turned 32 yesterday, and that's a lot of wear and tear on that body. His former team, the Thunder, have been in talks to trade Chris Paul to the Suns. Chris Paul, of course, was in Houston just last year. Woj, how far along are these discussions?
Well, both Oklahoma City and Phoenix, they've engaged in these conversations, and Oklahoma City has very much allowed, like they did with stars they've had in the past, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, and Russell Westbrook, to give the star players the ability in a trade scenario to have some voice on where they might go. They're doing the same with Chris Paul. So he and his group, certainly have the ability here to bring ideas to Oklahoma City. The Phoenix scenario remains out there. There were some talks about possibly some third teams involved who might help to move some of the pieces around. But right now, I think Chris Paul is being patient about where his next destination might be, his family and where they would spend the season. Those are important considerations to him. But I think you'll continue to see that Chris Paul, Oklahoma City situation, one where they'll work together on trying to figure out a next step for him.
Yeah, Chris Paul, 35 years old, the Thunder owing him $41.4 million next year. And they also just hired the new head coach, assistant Mark Daignault, to lead the team.